And here we are. All right, so other than your breakfast, which I'm sure is very enjoyable right now, give me some give me some high points of your week so far.
Let's see. Thanksgiving was a high point. Had the family over, helped my mom cook Thanksgiving dinner. It's pretty low key. There's only like 7 of us, so nothing too extravagant. Another high point. I did not have to work yesterday, which was probably the best part of the entire day. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Nothing too exciting.
There's nothing wrong with being low key. Now, is that like you said there was like what 6 or 7 of you at the Thanksgiving dinner? Is that usually how it goes?
Yeah, there's usually so my sister, she's on the East Coast, so she's not here right now. So my grandparents came down, and yeah, that's usually about as big as it gets. Sometimes, like last year, James came over, but this year he had to go with his family. And technically, I was supposed to go over there with his family too. You know, we're trying to keep it even, but I wasn't about to make my mom cook Thanksgiving dinner all by herself. So I bailed, told them, sorry I'm a horrible person, and stayed home.
Well, I hope you didn't include the horrible person. I don't think they place horrible person on somebody like that.
Well, you never know.
Do you and your family get along easy? I'm just kind of interested. Do you guys handle conversations and just discuss things pretty openly?
Yeah, I mean, there's it's not too because it's just my grandparents, so like there's not really. I mean, yeah, we chat. I think the only conflict is usually it's between Hannah, so my second youngest sister, or my youngest sister, and my dad because she doesn't take when people pick on her she doesn't like that very much. Like most of us, we have thick skin, but hers is a little thinner, and my dad sometimes forgets. And that is usually the only point of contention when we all have family gatherings. Uh, but yeah, no, we sat around and we watched football and we chit chatted and we hung out with the dogs. It was, I mean, it's nothing super exciting, but I mean, it was relaxing. It was fun.
As long as it's enjoyable, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a bunch of people or anything. I mean, I just had myself, just my father and his 2 sisters over. And unlike
Okay.
your family, it can get quite stuffy. I don't know how to talk to these people.
Really?
Oh, yes. A lot of negativity, and I literally constantly have to fight it. I talked to my mother later about it, and I'm like, it was brutal. Just, it's high anxiety 24/7. Picture
Oh, dang.
California, and it's the exact opposite. That's what I enjoyed most, and that's what I missed most about California.
Yeah. Yeah. No, people
It's
don't
just the
do good
state of
with
mind.
negative. No. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it helps that my little brother, he's the youngest, he's 14, but you can still like if you get bored, you could just like tackle him and see what happens. Like that's usually what we did. He ended up being tackled a number of times, so that
There's
helped.
always that.
Yeah.
So you enjoy missing out on work. So I take it Thursday is like a usual shift for you then.
Well, not necessarily, but I work for Kohl's, and so
Uh-huh.
they opened on Thanksgiving Day at 6, and last year I had to work that shift, and the year before I had to work that shift. So I was really excited when I didn't get scheduled. Honestly, I was so surprised. I didn't get scheduled for Thursday, and then I didn't get scheduled until 1 o'clock today, and I only worked 4 hours. And I was like, how did this happen? I only worked 4 hours on Black Friday. And then I told one of my coworkers, and he's like, what? I work an 8-hour shift on Thursday, and then I come back and work an 8-hour shift on Friday. I was like, I'm so sorry. No idea how this happened. But I'm not going to argue. So,
No, well, even just taking today, for example, I'd much rather go out today and have to work today than deal with the people from last night. I can only imagine.
yeah, yeah.
What was it
And
like
like
last year when you had to work that?
when I did it last year, it was so like there was the line of people waiting by the door because like we get like weird electronics in like stuff we don't usually have, and they're on sale. So we have the line of people at the door, and then after that, it completely dies down. Like there's nobody. And then the after dinner rush comes. So it'll be like around 8 or 9, like we'll have some people come in, and then it'll be dead again until like 5 a.m. and then more people will come. So I mean, it's really not necessary to be open on Thanksgiving, but I'm not the boss. So.
No, obviously it must make some sense, otherwise they wouldn't do it. So
Yeah, whatever.
I always think about that when I see traffic lights and stuff. Why is this here? Oh, wait, Adam, they're actually paid to figure this stuff out, and it costs a lot of money to put this stuff in, so they probably put some time and thought into it. A little bit more than you,
Yeah.
just passing by complaining.
That's a good way to look at it. Like, yeah, like why are all the lights red when I'm the only car here? I don't understand.
Why is it flat? Why is it not flashing when it's 1 o'clock in the morning? This seems silly.
Right? Ugh.
But like I said, they know more than me. I am no traffic cop.
Right? Not in charge of that.
All right, what I am in charge in, look at that beautiful segue,
Wow, bravo.
is conducting this session. And when I went back and just I didn't listen to all of our conversation, but just going through my notes, and then I really wanted to hit on the very end of the conversation, which was where we started talking about what we're going to do moving forward. My biggest takeaway, even though you talked about things such as becoming more detail oriented and perhaps dealing with some procrastination, what really stood out to me was when you started talking about your self-confidence. And even though, because your tone completely changed, I mean, it was an immediate spark. I mean, I saw the eyes go back. Whoa, that's what I wanted to talk about. Now I got it. And you were enthusiastic about it, and you were just much more energetic. So I definitely want to delve more into that.
Okay.
So that's what I plan on talking about today is self-confidence. And one particular aspect, well, it's going to be more self-efficacy because you talked about having self-confidence in other areas of your life. And you had more struggle when it came to teaching sports psychology techniques, and as well as dealing with difficult customers at retail. I would really like to delve into the aspect of teaching sports psychology, mostly because you mentioned in there receiving feedback from a student, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. But first, I just want to know. I mean, obviously, we've only been in the program for a little over a year and a half now. But when did you start feeling a little bit of lack of confidence when it came to the material?
It's really hard to pinpoint like when exactly I felt like I didn't present the material in a confident way. I don't know. I think that's just kind of been an overall theme. Like I don't know. It's just always been that way. Like people ask me like what I learned in school, and then my mind just goes blank, and then I can tell them like, oh, like well, there was this theory, and then like that was it. Even though I just completed like my entire undergrad, like, no, I can't really tell you anything about psychology, but yeah, it's very interesting, like stuff like that. And I think it just kind of folded over into this program, like, so teach me something about sports psychology, and then there's just like so much information and like panic, and then even when I'm going in to like teach clients like a specific thing, we still learn like all this information, and then maybe I just put too much pressure on myself to condense it in like an understandable fashion, but I don't know, it just end up going blank, and then there's a lot of ums and likes and in like the conversation. So
Right.
yeah, I'd say it's more of an overall theme than a specific point in time.
So it's more your educational background in general. When people ask you about, okay, you were doing psychology at one point, somebody would ask you about psychology, what you were learning, and you wouldn't be able to put that into words and transfer that into dialogue with a person.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's interesting. Because obviously you enjoy psychology and you enjoy obviously the mental skills, the techniques we're learning in sports psychology, but you're not be able to express that in words.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so weird because like I'll go to class and I'll type out all these discussion posts and like I sounds like I know what I'm talking about when I do all those assignments, and then like it's applying it to like real world stuff, and I'm just like, wait, I knew how to do this when I was sitting in front of my computer, and then now I don't. Why?
Well, based off that, do you use any of the do you implement any of the techniques into your everyday life?
Um. Well, I like the circle breathing. You know, I yell at people to do that all the time. But um, if I find myself getting negative, then I'll consciously work on either reframing it or just stopping it and going on to the next thing. That's if I catch myself. You know, sometimes you're halfway down a rant before you realize that. Um, I think those are the two biggest ones. I mean, I'm sure I use some of the other ones, but
Right.
I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
as we
everybody
talked.
uses some,
Yeah,
right?
everybody. These are things we do every single day, but I'm talking about more or less just taking the time out for literally mental practice, like making a conscious effort to, hey, I really want to work on myself. I'm noticing that I'm getting negative a lot. How can what strategy or technique would best serve me? I want to try some of these things out and actually hone in on this because I know it's affecting me. Have you ever done that at all?
I think the only thing I've actually consciously practiced would be like the progressive relaxation, like before bed. I've gotten pretty good at it, but I think that's probably the only one, honestly.
Now, referencing back to Performance Enhancement A, I remember from the first quarter that I spent there. Did you take that course?
Yeah, I did. I took it the spring right before you.
Okay, and did you take it with Dr. Robinson?
Nope. Well, I
No.
had somebody else who I can't remember, but yeah, I had somebody.
Okay. Well, with that other professor, did you
Maybe it
were
was. Maybe it was. Yeah, it was Sarah. Yeah, it was.
Sarah?
Okay, sorry.
Okay. No,
Yeah.
it's I don't. My feelings are hurt, and she could watch this. I don't know.
Yeah, wow, that
So
would be
maybe she'll be
that'd be
affected by it, but something that really stood out for me that I thought was very helpful, and I always appreciated Sarah for this, and not only on top of her feedback, which I think is like the biggest thing that stands out from Sarah and her teaching style,
hmm
but she had us right from the get-go, almost every single one of the techniques, I believe, she required us to incorporate it into some aspect of our life and then reflect on it. Do you remember doing any of that?
Um, I don't know. That was like a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I probably did. Like, I'm sure I did. I remember like trying to read the imagery script to like my sister and like trying to go through that. Um, but I don't know. I mean, not nothing impactfully like that I still remember. I mean, I might have, but
Right. Nothing immediately jumps to mind.
yeah.
Okay. And like you said, I mean, it was quite a while ago. I know it was very impactful for me, but that was just me personally, and we all have
hmm
different reactions. And like some of the techniques, and she explained this as well, that some of the techniques will be more impactful and more influential in your future practices, and because they come more natural to you, just due to your skill set.
Yeah.
So, like I remember centering, I found very helpful when you're shooting free throws. Obviously, I'm a basketball guy, so when I was out there and I was using these, a lot of them were focused around the game of basketball, and I found when centering, it's very useful during shooting your free throws. You literally just get ingrained with the ground, and you're in complete relaxation. You can feel the ball, and you're in a very comfortable state, and nothing else matters. I found centering very effective when it comes to free throw shooting,
Yeah.
and I mention that with my players now, and at least the coach. Huh. Thanks, Kristina. Sorry.
No problem. I got you.
But yeah, I was just interested in that because I know that had a great impact on me, and kind of I felt I had a smooth transition into talking about it with the general public, what we were studying based off experimenting on myself. So I would certainly encourage you to do that. Just spend some
Yeah.
time, and just it doesn't even a few minutes is very impactful. If you just read over an imagery script and practice an imagery script for a couple minutes every single day, I'm sure it would have grand effects on you.
Yeah, I'm sure it would, and it'd probably be a lot easier to like teach it if I like got more detailed with my knowledge of such things.
Oh yeah, because if you fully understand it yourself, it becomes that much more, you become more curious, and therefore you learn the ins and outs, what works, what you find works for you, and then naturally through that process of trying to figure out what works best for you for each technique, it will lead you to discover different strategies that other people could use that may not be as useful to them that you use, but perhaps through the learning process of yourself, you can give them strategies that didn't work for you that could actually work for them instead.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I should try to do that. Like,
I think that might help not only conversations about what you're doing in sports psychology, but I think it would absolutely help you as a consultant as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Discussing with clients and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. What really hit home based off that was when you mentioned that when you created the sheet, which I actually didn't do in mine, the sheet for feedback from the athletes that you worked with your first internship, and that one of them said, "Be more confident," and that seemed to spark a little bit of reaction to you. At least it obviously stood out to you enough, because I'm sure you had multiple feedback forms that you received, but you immediately pointed to that you didn't portray confidence. So that obviously stuck out, and I was just interested in hearing what your reaction was when you received that feedback. Did you follow up with that person? Did you spend time thinking about it, what they were talking about, perhaps?
So let's see. So when I got all the feedback sheets back, most of them were just like, "Oh, you were awesome. Like, thanks for coming. I hope you can come back next year." Like, da 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 da. And like, I knew I was gonna get a lot of that. But when I prefaced it, like, I had all of the girls like in a circle, so like 30, 32. And I was like, okay, so this is just for me to grow. Like, if there's anything you feel like I need to work on, just let me know. And and you don't know. And then someone's like, do we write our name on it? And I was like, I mean, if you want to, you can, but they're supposed to be anonymous, so you don't have to. And then I was like, and if you write anything bad about me, don't put your name on it. I mean, I was just joking, but you know.
Right.
And so then I got them all back, and most of them were just like, "Oh, you were great. Oh, I love to do the team bonding. Oh, I wish we could have done more of this." Like da 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 da. And then I had a section at the bottom. It was just like, any other comments? And most of the time that was blank, or just like, "No, you were awesome." And then it was just that one girl. It was like, "Just be more confident in like what you know, and you were awesome," and da 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 da. And I was like, okay, finally some helpful feedback. So I don't know if I like clung to it because that was feedback I'd gotten before, like from my supervisors, and I've gotten it from a few teachers too, or just because it was actually like one of the few helpful feedbacks I'd gotten from these high school girls, you know. So, but yeah, that was pretty much it, and it was anonymous, so she didn't write her name on it, so I don't, and I can like take an educated guess or two, but and I don't know, I was really thankful for that. I was like, okay, so even though I know I've gotten more confident, I guess I'm not quite to where I want to be if somebody else is saying that I'm still, like, they can see it. Like, if one of the clients can say they can see it, then I'm nowhere near where I want to be, you know?
Okay. Now you mentioned that your supervisor mentioned the same thing, that you were lacking confidence. How did that conversation go?
I mean, it went like a conversation. Let's see. So, like, she would say that because a few times, like, well, one time I texted her, like, when I was at a practice, and I was like, all right, I get a surprise meeting. Like, what do I do? And I gave her, like, the two options that I had. And she was like, all right, what should you do? Because it was like a performance profile or like a fun game or activity. And I tend to lean more towards activities because I'm good at those. And and I like to build like team cohesion and I like to have conversations around that. But we hadn't done any like academic like performance profiles or, any like lesson things. So, and she's like, what should you do? And I was like, well, I guess I should do a performance profile, even though I really just want to do a game, but thanks. And then I did it, and I knew, like, deep down I knew, like, I should have just went with the performance profile because that's something that we needed to do together. But I guess it was just a lack of confidence because I wasn't, like, I was prepared, like, I had the plan ready, but I wasn't, like, mentally prepared to do it that day. So I don't know. That was just like an example of like when I showed less confidence and like just following my instincts, kind of.
Well, you
And
can
then
see,
yeah, I think
I can see you just talking about it right now, just the mood shift where you were talking about, oh, I like to build team cohesion and I really like the fun activities, but I know I should. You really place an emphasis on should, and it had a negative
yeah,
connotation to it. So you could tell that, if you're not totally buying into what you're explaining to the clients, then it's difficult for them to buy in. It's going to be obvious
yeah,
through body language, or whether it's through our tone, the words we use. It'll come up. It'll surface at some point. It's just whether or not they pick up on it.
yeah, yeah. And I think that's probably where they picked up on it the most is like I would tell them to do something and then I'd like pause, think about it, like yeah, that makes sense. Okay, go do that, instead of just like knowing that it made sense unless somebody said something,
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. I think that's pretty much where she might have gotten that. Is just like it'd be like, no, we can't do any. We're not doing anything. Well, yeah, we're doing something fun, but we're not going to be moving around, or I because I would rather lead an activity. I think they might have seen that I didn't have as much enthusiasm for like teaching a performance enhancement technique. Like I find those are really like easier to do like on a one-on-one instead of a team session.
Uh-huh.
But I like to work with teams, so I need to figure out like how to be confident when teaching it to a team because there's like so many different personalities that you have to factor in for at once, especially when doing something like specific, like a focusing drill or like coming up with keywords. Like there's gonna be so many different answers, and I've got to like be comfortable with like taking in all those answers, where it's easier to do it on like a one-on-one session. Does that kind of make sense?
No, you can hone in your focus, and it is more highly detailed, and
Yeah.
it's very specific to each individual, as we've uncovered throughout time. That context matters, and obviously, we all see the world subjectively different. So you're going to
Yeah.
get a bunch of different answers, and it's difficult to maintain focus with a larger group.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how many times
So,
did you attempt to teach techniques, or did you more or less focus on activities with the group and then just do techniques with individuals in that first internship?
let's see. I did keywords, and we did the performance profile with all 3 teams, and then I did the keywords with 2 of them, and that might have been it. Yeah, that might have been it.
Mm-hmm.
And then
now,
I focused more on team bonding with like activities and such. So
right.
And that's what the coaches wanted, so it's just a lot easier to go that way.
Now, just to figure out what did the structure of the group session look like when you did the keywords with the large group?
So with my freshman team, it was difficult, and then that was like the team I tried it with first was the freshman team, and like it was kind of difficult because I like set it up and I was like, okay, what's focus? And like we had a whiteboard, so I would like write stuff on the whiteboard, like
Mm-hmm.
what's focus, like what distracts you. Okay, this is how we're gonna get over it. Like that was the structure, and I think I got like flustered when one of my girls, and she's she was just like always like this, no matter what we were doing. But she would be in La La Land, and like I was talking about focus, and she would be like 3 feet away from everyone else, not even looking at the whiteboard, like paying attention to other practices. Like, and I don't know, I think that just like flustered me a little bit. I was like, I'm teaching you about focus and you're not focusing. Like, come on.
Ironic.
Yeah, but I mean, you could tell, like, I feel like at least, I don't know, a third of the girls got it, and like I would follow up with them afterwards. Okay, so like, what was your cue word? Like, did you use it? Like,
Hmm.
was it helpful? And then when I did it with the JV team, like I had the same sort of structure, and then, but like some of the girls like didn't quite, like they didn't buy into it. Like I had a few like were just like, I don't care about this. I'd rather just go back to practice. And that's probably what like messed me up there. But most of the girls like they got it, they understood it. They wanted to like you learn this technique to be better. But like it's just those, I let those few little outliers like get to me like more than I should, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so you addressed the entire group at once with the whiteboard. You didn't have them really. Was there much interaction between the group when you were discussing keywords?
Yeah. I mean, they were high school girls, and I never figured out how to get them to stop, like, whispering or chit-chatting with one another while I was talking. Like, it didn't matter what I was doing. Like, they would do that uh, entire time I was there, honestly. Like, and it's just a little, like, side conversations, like, and yeah, that would happen. Um, And then, but when I like let them come up with their own keywords, like they could chat, like that's fine if you're trying to figure it out. But every once in a while, like I'd be in the middle of like my paragraph long speech, and then they'd check out, and then I'd like try to bring them back. I'm like, okay, so what did you guys think about that? And they'd look at me like, uh, yeah, it was great. Cool.
Did you have handouts along with this exercise?
Um, yeah, I think for the focus one, I had the grid, and then uh it'd be like, and then on the bottom it had a section for like how many you got the first time, and then your keyword, and then how many you got the second time. So
And did you
very
have them
simple.
do that, or did you suggest that they practice this on their own, then come back to you and let you know how they did?
No, we did that together. So we did the focus grid at the start of but like before I started talking, and
Hmm.
then I'd ask them about what focus is and like how it works, and then we'd come up with a keyword, and then I'd let them do it again.
Okay. And how smooth the process was that? Was there a lot of side conversation when that was occurring? When you were just after you completed the concentration grid and you guys kind of were discussing what occurred?
So all the athletes were really like, they liked the focus grid part because it was a challenge, and they all like was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And then, but then like afterwards, like then I'd start talking about it, and like trying to get them to like, hey, you wanna do better at this? Like, let's do this. That's when I'd lose them, and then be like, okay, we're gonna do it again, and then they'd all focus back, like, okay, got it. Like, even if they didn't like buy into the focus word, they still wanted to do the grid. I was just like,
Hmm.
okay, we'll see what happens.
It seems like it was just a matter of keeping them engaged. It was kind of difficult to keep them engaged when you were discussing the topic in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, yeah.
How about for your team bonding exercise? How does that compare to your team bonding exercises then?
Um,
Because you said
I
you were very confident and you were very comfortable in that atmosphere. Um, did did the girls respond to that differently? How did they respond when you were doing team bonding activities as opposed to working on keywords? Because obviously, I'm sure you went into detail on team bonding information as well during these activities.
um, yeah. So what would happen was like I'd get them all gathered around, and I'd have probably like 90% like focus. Like that was pretty much as high as it ever went. It was probably 90-95% focus. And then I'd be like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is how we're gonna do it, and then go do it. And they'd be all like gung ho, and they'd go like whatever challenge I set before them, they'd be like super pumped. But it was really difficult for at least like for the freshman team for sure. Like the JV team, like they did better, but like the debrief, where we're trying to get in all of our information and like pull out like what they learned. Like, I mean, they went like I did them, but like they never went as smoothly as I wanted to. Like, when we did them I know you were online, but when we did them in class, like we'd have like everybody like, yeah, like, oh, we could learn this or we could learn this, and like all these different takeaways we could get. But it was harder than I thought to get at least like one good one, and then like draw on that. Like it was really easy. Like the first activity we did, I was like so excited. Like they talked forever, and I was like, yes, we got it. And then like we'd go through the season, and they'd be like, yeah, we don't really want to talk about it anymore. Like, okay, go back to practice.
All right, so I'm
So
curious, what activity was that where they just talked and talked and talked? Because I had a similar experience in my first internship with a certain technique and certain activity that we did that really drew out a lot of conversation.
it was the key game actually had a lot of conversation to it. The one with the balls that you throw in a pattern, and then you add another ball, and they have to keep the same pattern. If somebody drops it, then they have to make up a new pattern. Have you ever done that one?
No, I've never heard of that one.
Oh, it's amazing. It's like on my top 5 list. I love that game.
And what is the skill set it's trying to build in that?
So it works a lot on focus because you have to know who's throwing it to you and who you have to throw it to. It also works a lot on communication.
Mm-hmm.
So like some teams, they won't talk during this, and I mean sometimes it'll work, but sometimes it won't. And then if not talking works, then you can follow up with like, well, is there a level of trust that your teammate's gonna like do their job, and then you can build off that. Yeah, but it's really a lot about focus. So and staying relaxed.
Mm-hmm. So I take it when it came to this activity, you kind of built it more or less around communication as opposed to focus.
Yeah, when I did the debrief, I was like, I asked them how like this game, how they thought this game related to volleyball, and like they went into a bunch of different directions, like communication, how some people like take it more seriously than others, and like how intense they got about it, and how that should translate to the volleyball court. And yeah, it went a lot of different directions, and I was very amused by it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was great. And it was like my first one, so I was super pumped about it. It's like, yes, we got it. And then like I'd go and we did with them which one did we do? I don't know. We did like kind of like the beam one, where you have them all on a beam and then they have to like switch places without falling on the ground. It's
I can
like,
picture what you're talking about, but no, I've
yeah,
never really done it.
yeah, they have to like reverse. So like the person all the way at the far left has to be all the way at the far right. And I don't know, they have to work with each other, cooperation. Like we did that one, and I let the game, like it could have been my fault. Like I let the game go a while, and they're all like ready to leave, like it was the end of practice. But then I was like, okay, good job, you guys did it. And they're like, woohoo! And then they just all ran away, and I was like, whoa, where'd everybody go? We didn't talk about it. And I was just like, and I just let that one go, and that probably was my own fault. Like I should have like brought them all back and made them say something, but like it's that I just need to find like the happy medium where we can talk. It doesn't have to like be like a 30-minute debrief. Like that was cool, but it's not necessary. Like where we can just chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So basically, it sounds like each one of your sessions, your group sessions at least, excuse me, was more or less built around the activity, and debrief was basically where you got to touch on sports psychology subjects, and that was in totality your group sessions where you were building team bonding and stuff like that, where you were actually most comfortable.
Yeah.
So it was basically activity, and debrief was the only time you really touched on sports psychology subjects.
Yeah. Which like I personally liked that setup. And I think the girls liked it too. It was just me like making sure I like I didn't every time like insert like an actual sports psychology like topic. Like I let them bring it up. Like,
Right.
yeah, we weren't very focused. I was like, okay, so how do we become more focused? Like that's how it would come up.
Mhm.
And then sometimes it didn't. And I mean, I was okay with like letting them lead the session. But I feel like it might have been more helpful if I like took a little bit more control of it, you know, like making sure that I like, okay, so you guys said confidence. Okay, what does confidence mean? Okay, like stuff like that. And for the most part, that's how it went. But it was just those every once in a while, and it's just like, dang it, come on.
No, I think it's that constant search for engagement, and I think what you hit on there is very key, and that's what I found most important and impactful when I did quality sessions with the group that I did, because I had a larger group like you. I had 22 kids in almost all my
Mm-hmm.
sessions, and it was basically what I did was, because I always only I had them all in one group. I didn't have them split up into multiple teams. This was just one team. I would
Yeah.
split them up into smaller groups when we were doing activities other than icebreakers. I typically started out each one with an icebreaker just to get everybody moving around and stuff. And that was more or less my activity. That was
Okay.
kind of just lighthearted, just to get everybody to relax. And, they would have to, it requires them to pay attention, but it would broadly touch on what we were going to hit that day. I would then discuss in small detail the sports psychology topic that I was hoping to touch on. And then we'd break in smaller groups, and they would basically take command, that sense of autonomy in the smaller groups, and then they would come up with ideas around, say, like you said, cue words. So if, take for instance, I was working with your volleyball team, we would do an icebreaker based around either focus or something of that nature, perhaps like the key game, like a broken down version of the key game, more relaxed version, for like 5-10 minutes, and then obviously they would bring up focus or communication. And then naturally, once they started bringing that up, I would transition into what we were talking about that day.
Okay.
Briefly touch on that, and then do another stronger activity where they're actually kind of coming up with strategies and ideas for techniques on their own, and then presenting them to the group and bouncing ideas off each other. That way they're all learning. And
Okay.
then we would debrief and that's, the debrief was more or less a recap each time. And that way they could come away with stronger takeaways.
Yeah. Yeah. How long did you get with your team each time you had those?
That was
Kind
a
of.
question I was just going to ask you. For my experience, I was given between 30 and a maximum of 45 minutes with the team.
Okay.
And it was always prior to practice. So sometimes kids would be coming in late because practice was almost exclusively an hour after school. So in these cases, they would just spend an hour with me, and then we'd go out to practice afterwards.
Oh, okay.
So I dealt with some distractions as well as people shuffling in, and it was no big deal. I would just motion them over and explain to them what was going on. Hey, hop in here. This is what we're doing, and we would just move forward.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I usually had like half an hour, and it was in the middle of practice. So it was surprisingly the hardest part was getting them to like sit close together because they were like all hot and sweaty, and we were in the gym, and it was like not the best air conditioning. And
Mm-hmm.
so like and they'd be like, yeah, we don't want to be close to each other. Like and be like, well, like there's two other teams practicing at the other side of the gym. Like you guys need to be close together and close to me so we can talk. But that was surprisingly the hardest part was getting them to sit close to each other.
Well, I imagine because they're coming up from a completely different environment where they're super active, they're doing their sport, and then all of a sudden, oh, now we gotta sit in the classroom and talk or do
Yeah.
something really different. It's quite a dramatic change, and I think that's where it'd probably be a good idea just to get them. I don't know. It's an interesting approach. I would like to experience that. Perhaps maybe even just,
Yeah.
if you were to recap how's practice going so far, just get them in a different mindset where they're actually just kind of contemplating and being more self-reflective. Just get them in that
Yeah.
mindset would probably ease the transition to activities and sports psychology related stuff.
Yeah, which might have been why it was easier for me to get them engaged in like activities rather
Mm-hmm.
than like sitting and learning because like they were already in that mindset like okay, let's move, let's go,
Go, go,
let's get
go. Yeah.
done. Yeah. So
Well, how did you typically start out the sessions?
I got them all. Like, I actually did start like how's the. I'd either say like, um, how was your last game, or I'd go like, wow, those sprints looked really hard. Like, are you guys doing good? Because they'd mess up and they'd have to sprint, and it'd be great. Um, and then like I'd ask them how their day is going. Like that's pretty much typically how I'd start the session. Like, okay, so how was your day? Like, it's a Monday. Did you all survive? And then I'd get a few like, yeah, like, no, it was awful. Like, I'd get a few like they'd start pulling in, engaging, and then it'd be like, okay, well, are you guys ready to do something fun? And they'd be like, yeah, ready. And then I'd either say, okay, well, we're gonna do this activity, or like, okay, so I want you to pay attention to the whiteboard. And that's usually how I would start a session.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, you have that handout right there. I'm not even sure if I want to even hit on it because it probably would take at least 10 minutes or so, and I don't have 10 minutes.
Okay.
But I'll just basically go over it with you and just talk about it. I can do it off my memory because I actually printed it out, but it's upstairs, and I don't want to run upstairs while you're sitting here across from me on the screen. I can recall what's
Gotcha.
on there. Because it's and now that we're talking here in this second session, kind of going over what your feedback was from that athlete, I got the image in my mind that perhaps you were portraying poor body language or tone or something of that nature. It was just obvious to everybody. And obviously thoughts, behaviors, and feelings all are interrelated, and they all play a role in how we perform. And if we want to perform well, we need to have confidence in our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. So what I just created, I did it this morning when I was reading through some confidence, a confidence chapter in one of our older texts, and the idea just popped in my head. I kind of keyed in on body language and modeling what we want to see, because I mean, like you said before, what we portray, what we put out there, it's going to be obvious in some subtle way, whether it be tone, whether our chin is held high or low, we have some shoulders, whatever.
Yeah.
It'll surface if we're not confident or we're not totally bought in, as was the case with your experience with cue words and what you should do as opposed to what you wanted to do that day.
Mm-hmm.
So, this really kind of just takes you in, and it briefly explains what role body language can play in portraying confidence. It just plays it can play a small role, it can play a large role. It's just very dependent on each individual because, like I said, they're interrelated. And there's an exercise in there where you just kind of self-reflect on either yourself, a time where you were super confident, and kind of vividly imagine what was going on. What behaviors were you doing? What was the tone of your voice? What was your body language doing? Were you using gestures? Was your dialogue brief and short? Were you very inquisitive? What was the reaction of the audience? Stuff like that, keying in on that, and then writing down some of those characteristics. And then what it comes down to is, how can I practice this? How can I start doing this? And that's the biggest key, I think, for you. And like you said, like we said before, you're talking about how you need to improve your detail oriented. And what kind of came to mind when I was thinking about it was, you said you keep a to-do list. And I have a similar practice, and I found this very effective just to help boost my own confidence, is to, along with the to-do list, prior to the to-do list, what I do is I write down what exceeded expectations that day, what was very exceptional in my day that really boosted my mood, and is something I can take pride in. I point out something like that. That way I can help build my confidence, because I too struggle with self-confidence, even though, I mean, I may portray something different to you. I don't know. I always make sure I go out of my way to do that. And then I kind of reference back to the to-do list and evaluate the to-do list.
Okay. So you like look at it again after the day's over and see what happened.
I kind of don't even have to look at it again throughout the day. On at night for the next day. First thing I do when I wake up in the morning, I go through it. That way I can boost my confidence in again by looking at the first thing that it went exceedingly well the day before, so I can build off that. I'm already in a positive mood, so I can attack that to-do list. And the to-do list is never longer than like 2 or 3 things. That way I know if I get those things done before I put my head down to go to bed at night, I know it's been a good day regardless.
Okay.
They're always related to what I want to accomplish. So it's either sports psychology or basketball related, or perhaps
Okay.
even relationship wise. And if I accomplish those things, it's a quality day, and I don't really need to reference back. And just getting in that daily ritual of doing it has really helped me just be conscious of it. I think I assume I'll get to the point where I won't even have to write it down anymore, because I'm already, you get automatic triggers in your mind where, oh, I did something really good here. You become much more aware of things you did good.
Yeah.
And as your supervisor, I'm sure, described to you, and as like you receive the feedback from your clients, you know the material. It's just that
Yeah.
you're not portraying that you know the material. Or like you said, in conversations with people, I'm doing all this studying. I type out all these great posts and stuff, but when it comes to talking about it, I can't. It's probably
Yeah.
because you're not recognizing, oh, I do know this stuff, and you're not making a daily habit of just reinforcing that and reminding yourself of what you've learned. And I think just doing that, I think, would help you tenfold, both as a consultant and just in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I'll figure out like how I can like incorporate something like that. Yeah, because I feel like I'm pretty like confident in like most aspects.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like when it comes to like the sports psych stuff, like the stuff I've been working on, like I don't know, for some reason it just doesn't work out.
Yeah, and that's what you need to figure out is what are the differences, say, even just to break it down into going into those situations where you are confident. I'm evaluating what you're doing beforehand. What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are your practices? What are you doing leading up to the event? What's occurring during the event? What do I look like? Even you can seek out feedback if you can't figure it out yourself.
Yeah.
What's going on there? And then afterwards, what do I do afterwards? And just compare and contrast what the differences are, and then just try and match those up and just start slowly incorporating situations and behaviors where you're confident, and then implementing them into areas where you're not as confident, even though you have the skill set, because the skill set is there, and that's obviously a prerequisite for anything to be confident in.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just a matter of recognizing that you have those skills and making the most of those skills. So once we get that down, Kristina, I think we'll be in great shape.
Sweet.
So I mean, if you could take time sometime over the next week and kind of go through that sheet, and honestly, I think I'll go through it myself just to bounce ideas off each other. That way, I mean, like I said, if we can understand the process ourselves, it makes us that much better teachers.
Yeah. Yep.
So if we can take some time out this week and just go through that sheet, and we'll discuss it next time and kind of recap how these sessions have gone and any other topics that come up. Cool.
Alrighty, sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Kristina. Hope you have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, you too. Good luck on your game today.
Thank you.